Welcome to the road to Deadpool and Wolverine. We are talking about X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. Thank you for joining us. If you are watching this after the fact, thank you for watching. Just a couple things to get started before I bring Lion. Please remember to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. You'll want to follow us wherever we are, especially subscribing to us on our YouTube with all of the content that we're doing. Also, please be sure to check out our merch store. We have lots of fantastic things that are there. And of course, you can check out our website where this show is also streaming live right now. Now, there's lots of other things that we can talk about, but you can just check out our currently scheduled live shows, the videos that we have out, especially like our Play for Keeps and all that other stuff. But one other thing to just remind you before we get started, because of course we want to just go ahead and jump right into the movies because it's the day before Independence Day, and I would love to declare independence from the X-Men movies because yeah, it's been a couple weeks. But please be sure to check out Nerd Initiative's new comic book day reviews every Wednesday. You can check those out on our website now. The Bullpen team does a great job of talking about what is new in comic issues, and they'll give you the recommendations. And on top of that, it'll take you to the website, but you can also check earlier in the week. Comic Concierge does a fantastic article about the most anticipated comics every week. So you can get your week started right on Monday or Tuesday to see what's coming out. That way you're ready to go to your local comic book store on Wednesday as the issues drop. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to jump right into these movies and talk about them. Because let's face it, me and Locke can talk a lot. And I promise this time I'm going to try. Well, I've been doing pretty good lately. Normally, if you've ever seen us on The Real Study, I typically repeat what Law says. And I've done pretty good lately not doing that.
All the time. That's what I'm
yeah. But Law, thank you so much for joining again. Please tell us where we can find you.
You can find me across all social media at Black Girl Marvel. TikTok is Black Girl Marvel's Multiverse, as well as YouTube. Like, I got some things brewing on the YouTube, so go ahead and make sure you subscribe to me on there so you don't miss anything. But yeah, all social media, Black Girl Marvel.
Awesome. So tonight we again are talking about the final two X-Men films. Before we get into next week with Deadpool, and honestly, I want to go ahead and announce this right. If you guys know, we'll have a guest on next week along with some of the other team because Gangster Megan could join us because of scheduling conflicts. Will is in Disneyland, so if you guys are in California and you see a rather jolly bald guy at Galaxy's Edge, be sure to say hi to Will while he's there, and then just leave him alone because at some point while he's there at Galaxy Edge, he will realize how much money he spent. So yeah, but they'll be there. But we're also having Vibing with Kai. He just confirmed before this show. He's on TikTok and Instagram. Not only is he does like musical theater, but if you have any social anxiety or you're an introvert and you have videos that you have seen going around the internet that relate to you, it's probably Kai that's done them. But he'll be with us next week to talk Deadpool, and he seems very excited. But with that said, let's go ahead and first jump into X-Men Apocalypse. And this is a film, of course, with the titled villain Apocalypse, played by none other than Oscar Isaac, who, if you are a new Marvel fan, you may have recognized him as Mark Spector in Moon Knight on Disney Plus. Which I don't know what it is, but the dude plays lots of Egyptian stuff at this point.
At this point, yeah. He does well though. I ain't mad at him.
Well, I will say Apocalypse is more of the Ivan Ooze for me when it comes to his design, but we'll get into that. So let me go ahead and let you just take it away to start off. What were your maybe your initial thoughts when you watched X-Men Apocalypse?
So as a fan of X-Men, like watching the animated version and things like that, different things that's come out over the years, stuff like that. Watching Apocalypse, I was heavily disappointed in just like the characters, like how they portrayed the characters. Like Storm having black hair bothers me because she comes from a tribe of women that they come from a tribe that has white hair. Like it wasn't something that was like bestowed upon her. It was already like like something that was ingrained in her DNA, in her roots, in her ancestry. So I felt like them stripping her of that and having like Apocalypse give that to her, and it wasn't even like it was given to her because of that. It was given to her because she was afraid, right? It was like the rogue treatment, she was afraid. Her hair turned white, so that was disappointing. The accent on Storm was disappointing. Storm was disappointing, let me just say that. I won't go into all
the actress, I thought they casted well, but then they gave her nothing to work with.
I still don't think they cast well. This is no offense to Alessandra. I believe her name's like Alice. I can't remember her name, but it's something like that. I should know her name, but I know it starts with an A. I think her name is like Alessandra or something like that.
Let me look it up for you while you're talking. Go ahead.
So, when they announced her as Storm, for me, she already wasn't dark enough because Storm is an African woman. She has dark skin. She's tall and statuesque. Once again, I feel like they did like the Halle Berry treatment. They just got somebody that was cute. Not to say that she's not a good actress, but I felt like they just got somebody cute. What's her name?
Alexandra Shipp.
Okay, Alexandra Shipp. Okay,
or Alexandria. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Alexandria Shipp. You're right. No offense to her. I've seen her.
Read. I'm sorry.
You're fine. We're both in this together, man. I'm not saying that she can't act. I just feel like this wasn't the role for her. Storm to me is a massive character. It's a massive role. It's a big undertaking. And I personally still felt like Halle Berry, who was an Oscar award-winning actress, still didn't play this character the way that I felt like she should be portrayed on screen.
Yeah.
Like I just felt like the women in this film was done dirty unless you're Jean Grey or Mystique, because Psylocke, Olivia Munn as Psylocke, she was like, she took her character very seriously. As you said on a previous podcast, Bryan Singer made it so that like no comics, you don't need to look into your character. Pretty much I'll tell you what to do. And she, she forced his hand. She made sure that her outfit was comic book accurate. She looked great. Her powers looked amazing, but she's barely spoke 2 words, if she only spoke 2 words. It wasn't, my first initial thoughts was I just didn't like this film. Watching it recently again, there were more parts of it that I did enjoy, to the point where I could probably go back and watch this. Like the Quicksilver scene is always an amazing scene. That scene's always great. What is it? The big showdown with Apocalypse is always good, even though it kind of retcons itself when Dark Pheonix comes out. But I'm sure we'll get to that, because that didn't make sense unless Apocalypse happened first, and this was just like us going back in time in Dark Pheonix.
I can do some mental gymnastics with Dark Pheonix, so when we get there, I can explain, because that was my first thought, and I realized like, I'll say it just now. They never call it the Phoenix Force. They never call it the Phoenix Force.
But they make it a bird. Her power is in the shape of a bird, so it gives the illusion that they're talking about the Phoenix Force. So now, but I will give you that. It's a little caveat. They don't say it.
Yeah.
But it's fire and it's a bird. Like, if that ain't Phoenix, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I like introducing new characters. I like that we got Nightcrawler in this film. I like that,
and I liked him in this. Like I did like this iteration. I thought the original
he shows up, he's great.
Yeah.
Anytime Nightcrawler shows up, X2 when he shows up, one of the best entrances of a film we ever seen in X2 with Nightcrawler. This Nightcrawler was younger, but he still had like that boyish charm that we know in X2. He was still like funny. I will say this, watching these films like back to back, you start to pick up some of the continuity within them. So when they were leaving the movie theater and Nightcrawler was just walking around and nobody was batting an eye, it's because 10 years ago mutants got exposed. And seeing like a blue being, because they see Mystique on TV and things like that, seeing a blue being means nothing. You know what I mean? Like people were just walking around, and I like that bit of like continuity that I think could be looked at as like a throwaway scene, but for me it was like really powerful now watching it than I did before. But what did you think?
Well, okay, so you said the movie scene, so I have to get this off my chest. I loved the little jab that Singer put in
about nobody
likes the third film. Like, it's like,
because like, yes, sir, you're correct, because
because
the pooch on that one.
Yeah, now I don't necessarily think I don't know if you could really compare him using that jab when it came to Return of the Jedi, versus, The
Yeah,
Last Stand.
yeah,
But
that's
at the same
working.
time, like, it's what. So, couple things. I thought some of the casting was great. Now, okay, so the actress who plays Jean Grey is, what's her name?
I know her name. I just can't get it out right now.
I know, like, of course, this thing doesn't. Sophie
Sophie
Turner.
Turner.
Okay,
Look at us
I
together. Look
had
at us.
not seen Game of Thrones.
Me neither. I still haven't seen it. So yeah.
I had not seen it until, like, I think it was this year I started watching it, like,
Mhm.
or a little bit last year. But I'd not seen Game of Thrones, so I did not have that reference. And honestly, like, I thought she was great when I first saw her. I just didn't like the movie. And then I saw her in Game of Thrones, and so I did have to have some type of, like, it's not that she's a bad person, it's just that she's a crappy person in Game of Thrones. And
Right.
so for me, like, I had to get past that. But I thought she did really well. I liked how they kind of introduce Scott and Jean together, how they're
Yeah.
kind of like, it's kind of like frenemies turn, lovers later on.
Yeah.
I did like they're casting Ty Sheridan
As
for
or
for Scott. I thought he did really well.
yeah.
Couple things that I realized with this is, again, whenever Bryan Singer, apart from his character flaws, which are inexcusable in a lot of cases,
Mhm.
Bryan Singer is the kind of guy who's like, I want to pull the toys out of the toy box. I don't care what they really were meant to do. I'm
Yeah.
just going to do what I want with them. And
Yeah.
that's always been my biggest complaint with his X-Men films. And let's face it, there was no reason for Strucker to come into this film to capture the X-Men,
No.
other than to give us another opportunity to see Hugh Jackman at least one more
No,
time.
for sure. For sure.
Like that.
And I never understood that scene, because didn't we see that back in beforehand? Mystique was Strucker. So it was just like, what happened in between that moment and him showing up now? Like
yes.
It's a gap there.
and then like on top of that, there's this whole thing where like the only payoff in that whole thing was Scott being like, we hope we never see him again.
Right.
Like, and
Right.
and it's like, but then even that, like, when we have seen him in flashbacks and all the other iterations of Wolverine, he's always gone berserk out of the tank after getting the adamantium.
Yeah.
This time they had him contained with again, a comic book accurate like look to him. He
looked right, the headset,
the machine that was
whole,
going to control him, which was cool. But it's like again, continuity issues.
Yeah.
I liked seeing Jubilee. I wish we would have gotten more Jubilee.
It would have been great.
Yeah, I thought she did well. I think she looked good. I love the hoop earrings. I love the outfit.
Yeah.
I love Kurt Wagner in this. Of course, Nightcrawler is always cool. I still kind of find it funny because he's kind of like Mystique's kid, and
in like a double way, like it's her. It's that's you're his father and son. I mean, father and mother.
Exactly.
But yeah.
And then she's like and again, like you could tell, like they make this Jennifer Lawrence character. It's like the Katniss Everdeen of the X-Men.
Exactly.
Where she's rallying everybody together. I liked the menacing aspect of Apocalypse. I think Oscar Isaac gave a lot of gravitas. I do, though, think where he was strongest was when they synthesized his voice to make it like almost a plural demonic keeper.
Right. Like it was like multiple voices speaking through him in a way. Yeah.
I felt like they should have kept that. I was trying to figure out what, like looking at the comics and looking at him, there was really not much give when you think of how to make that look not
come
look
to life.
cartoony.
Right.
I almost feel like they should have given him more, like what they did for Josh Brolin with Thanos. You could tell it was Josh Brolin.
But you couldn't
obviously
but there's some features in the eyes and stuff like that, but you couldn't really you're not distracted by the fact that he kind of looks like Josh Brolin.
And I feel like the grimace chin, like that was the kind of concept where they should have given him a bigger jaw and given him that straight line like he had.
But we wouldn't have gotten that great line from Star-Lord. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm not talking about for Thanos. I'm talking about
for Apocalypse.
Give him the bigger jaw, because that was always one of the things about Apocalypse. Like his proportions were so off. like you could tell he could never have been a mutant that could have like blended in with society,
Right.
because he augmented himself and he looked so different. um I didn't like I'm like, there's like so much like to go around, but I did not like, the part I did not like about Storm so much was he's magnifying everybody's powers.
Mm-hmm.
Storm is supposed to be a omega
Omega level
level mutant
mutant. Yeah.
off the bat. Like, she's
Mm-hmm.
not, she's not a queen.
Mm-hmm.
She's not like, there's all of these different things that I feel
Yeah.
like they again, they were just kind of trying to throw
Like characters
in
in to be
there.
like,
They're
let's
trying to
satisfy
look like
some
the page of the
people.
comics, but not referencing
Yeah.
the actual stories in the comics.
Exactly.
Um,
Because I understand, because like it made sense that he wouldn't have to amplify Magneto because Magneto is Magneto. He just
mhm.
needed like, Magneto has always needed a champion in a sense to like cheer him on, to give him like the strength that he needed. And when it's usually Charles, in this one it's Apocalypse, right? Because like now
Right.
he's meeting somebody that's on the same page as him, that wants to rid the world of like humans and want like, mutants to reign supreme. For Storm, that should have been another character that he didn't touch. That should have been another character that he kind of just encouraged or gave the strength to like see her potential. And I would have liked if her hair turned white due to that and not due to him amplifying and like scaring her hair white. That would have been a cooler thing
Yeah.
in my book.
I did like, okay. So, so we're talking about like what this was the 80s or was it
Yeah.
early 90s, or
No,
it
it was
was,
80s. It was
yeah, it was
80s. It
80s.
was high colored.
Um,
Yeah, so it's 80s. High waisted
uh,
pants and stuff. Yeah.
Apocalypse gaining his knowledge of like the English language and society through the satellites. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
don't have the data and the bandwidth. He pulled a Transformers basically. Like
Yeah.
they learn their English language that way. So it's kind of like, okay. Um, I did like how they showed his powers, where he kind of like accumulated other mutants'
Mm-hmm.
powers. I mean, we've seen that before.
But also,
Um,
we didn't get like any explanation to what other abilities he might have to make sense of him like tapping into the TV. You know what I mean? Like he has all these
yeah.
abilities. I feel like if you brought a big bad in, I think you could have took a couple more scenes in the beginning to show us like his beginnings in a way,
Mm,
instead of showing us his immediate end, right? Like we don't know anything about him, and then everything we do learn about him, we learn through Moira, which I think it's just an easier way to bring her back in. But I would rather you show us than tell us. But that's just, my
yeah. Yeah, I agree. But the Flash scene, what Flash? Oh my goodness,
oh my
Quicksilver.
gosh,
Oh
where's your
my,
brain? Where's your brain
I'm
at?
telling you. Listen, I'm on pain medication. I think I injured my foot this week.
Okay.
So it is what it
Okay,
is.
you're hopped up.
Uh,
That's fine. You're forgiven.
yeah. The Quicksilver though.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that scene. I loved bringing him in.
Yep.
I thought they did Scott's brother wrong though.
Yeah, I don't think he should have died at all.
Oh yeah, I think like I loved Havoc, and I always thought he was great, and I thought it was a great potential of like, and then again, like the whole Gene thing where she's talking to Scott and she's like, he's like, he was supposed to be the best, the best of us, and he was meant for great
Mm-hmm.
things, and she's like, no, he thought that was you, Scott.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
like, okay, you're passing the torch. Some catharsis, but again, it's the kind of thing like, I get there's a lot going on, there's a lot of things to deal with, but your brother's dead. Like,
Right. Like there should be like somewhere he should have been like, I don't know, like, okay, I'm on the outs with my brother right now, but I still love him, and if he died,
mhm,
I would be devastated, right?
sure,
So
understood.
I would think that Scott too should have been a little bit more devastated. I don't, but also Ty Sheridan is a newer actor at that time, you know what I mean? So I don't know, not Ty Sheridan. No, that is Ty Sheridan. It's my bad.
Yeah,
Like
that's fine.
he's a new actor at that time. Newer, not saying he just hopped into it, but like a newer actor. So like maybe that emotion was a little more tough for him, and that was the best
Mhm.
they can get. But I still feel like there should have been another scene like towards the end or somewhere where like it hits him again, that his brother is no longer alive. But also he should have never died in my book. Like
Right.
you're telling me that like I don't know. Quicksilver ain't the. I mean, Quicksilver's that quick, but he's not that quick. Like you know what I mean. So either he's that, but I understand that he was closer to the blast, which he kind of wasn't. If you think about his like how far his beam went into the other room, you know what I mean. And it's
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I don't think he should have died. I don't think to pass the torch, somebody has to die. He could have just been like, he could have been like severely hurt, maybe put in a coma or something. I don't know, like something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And then at the same time, like it blows up, and we never get to see what Scott sees, but obviously he sees something in the crater
Mm-hmm.
that's his brother. Like, so yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then of course we go back. The Alkalite Lake scene did not really need to happen. That was just Hugh Jackman pandering for the audience.
But also I noted so essentially this is like a new timeline essentially. So
Right.
if they do continue with these, which they're not, because obviously the MCU is going to like change this whole thing around whenever they do decide to get to like the X-Men. I think that if they would have continued, it would have been interesting to see Jean get older and remember him, but he don't remember her, because it makes sense he wouldn't remember her. Like it just because of his brain and his scrambling, and then however many years it's going to take him to get back to her. However, it would make sense that he doesn't remember her. But I don't like that they encounter each other like right then and there, because it feels creepy for this now grown man who has met this child to now like fall in love with this child if they ever meet each other again in the future. It just feels a little weird, as opposed to like X-Men, where it just felt like two adults who had an immediate attraction to each other, which I still feel like that was too fast, but like just two people who had like immediate attraction to each other. So it's, I don't know, I feel like for fan service they kind of like lost the plot for me a little bit, you know what I mean? Like lost
well, where it was interesting and engaging maybe in the first few X-Men films to have the throuple, having Jean be extremely young when she sees Logan,
right,
and the new timeline makes it extremely creepy,
extremely very much so.
Yeah, so let's talk about the four horsemen of the apocalypse real quick. We've already talked about Storm, Psylocke, and Psylocke working with Caliban. I actually kind of liked how Caliban, we got a little bit more fleshing with him. I know Caliban was not like your cup of tea, but it does give more credence to what Caliban was all about. He's finding mutants, he's finding places to move them. He's a smuggler,
right?
And so it was definitely interesting, and he was kind of underhanded. So,
well, he wasn't my cup of tea in like Logan, because they didn't do anything with him. In this one, at least he had something to pull from, as opposed to Logan, where he felt miles away from a character that we haven't seen. Or if you don't know the comics enough or pay attention to the movies enough, you wouldn't know who Caliban was in Logan. You have to go look him up. In this one, we kind of get an origin story, in a sense, not a full origin story, but we get like a younger version of him. We see what his powers are immediately. We understand what he's doing, and that makes him a interesting enough character in my book.
Yeah. Yep. And of course we have Psylocke. Psylocke is, the hired guns, basically. I could see how she was allured by the power that the power in enhancement or increasing. Let's face it, mutants love power and was it performance enhancing processes. It seems like it's throughout the
Plus she was probably tired of like having to be under Caliban and wanted to just like do her own thing. And if she had enough power, she could do that. She could achieve that. Maybe she could build her own empire. Maybe she can be her own like underground boss or something like that. Like nobody wants to be an underling forever. And somebody walks in and say, they can give you an out. I think I'm gonna take that out, man. Like, what you trying to do?
Yep. But of course, Psylocke introduces Apocalypse to Angel, who then it becomes Archangel, which they never really say it, but which I will say that transformation was visceral, and it was kind of satisfying.
Yeah.
Seeing like how he went from having angel wings to doing, I mean, in the comics, or in the animated series, they didn't really give you a full process of it. It was just like, what did they do to you?
Right.
But him having the blades and stuff,
Blades
like
and stuff.
showing him
Yeah.
using it, like I don't know, that for a guy, a kid who loved Angel, like an archangel, in the 90s, it was kind
Hmm.
of satisfying seeing him do that, because it's kind of those things that you want to happen. And I think that's where these movies do get a little bit of give a little bit of fan service, even though the
Yeah.
stories may not always be the best. But let's talk about Magneto. And I know Xavier and Magneto are over talked about,
Yeah.
but I didn't think they had a way of topping the visceral, like I wouldn't say visceral, but like
The
the
scene on the
dramatic,
beach.
like not even the scene on the beach, like topping Auschwitz,
Oh yeah. I
and
still.
dealing with
Yeah.
the loss of his family, to then take another one of his family, like take his family away again, like seriously.
Yeah. Like he just can't, like, his life is filled with like trauma, but also I feel like he's a cautionary tale for people who allows their pain to rule their life despite the cards that's been dealt to them, because what happened in Auschwitz is beyond his control. Like all of this hurt that comes his way is essentially beyond his control, right? So
Mhm.
he tries to find some type of control somewhere, and he's like, okay, well, since me being a good guy ain't doing it, I'm gonna just kill all y'all, because obviously I can't have what I want, so nobody gets to have what they want. But he's been dealt some really shitty cards in his
Oh yeah.
life, and you understand his pain. And I feel like if you take this Magneto and then you see what he becomes in Days of Future Past, I feel like anybody that feels like they can't survive their darkest day, Magneto eventually becomes a good guy.
Yeah, and especially like when we get to Dark Phoenix, like seeing
Mm-hmm.
the change of heart, which he specifically says,
Yeah.
that made a lot of sense. And again, he goes into the foundry, or the metalworking place where he's at, and he's about to kill all those guys because they turned him in, and his family's gone because of them. Um, and Apocalypse comes in, he's like, don't stop me. And then Apocalypse kills all the guys. Like, I'm sorry. One of the things that I would think of with Magneto is he would not have appreciated somebody else doing the dirty
No,
work
for
that he wanted to
sure.
do.
Yeah.
Like, he had so much rage and desire for vengeance in that moment, for them all to be gone, and him like, okay, I'll come with you. Like, it just
Yeah.
didn't
But
really
also
set well
I
with
felt
me.
like for Magneto, you're not stupid, right? You're not stupid. You've seen things throughout your time. You've been a part of teams where there were different creatures, people look like different things. Did you really think that this creature that looked like this was coming in to stop you from killing people? Did you really think? So his line of being like, "Don't stop me." Sir, look at this man. This ain't Charles. What did you think this was? He not about to stop you.
Yeah.
But I agree on that though. Him killing, but also we watched Magneto kill people already, so like it's one of those things where it's like sometimes I feel like they wait for opportune moments to show Magneto's power for like shock value, because we already
Yeah.
know he has a really cool power, so they wait for different parts in the movie to like display him. And they were like,
Mhm.
well, he just killed a person, he just killed a group of people with a necklace. I don't know what we can do on this scene. Well, let's just have Apocalypse just put everybody in the floor, and then he just goes with them. Cutscene. Like,
Oh, I could have, like, I'll tell you, we're in that foundry, because I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was like it was all metalworking, and it
mm-hmm,
was industrial. And all I could think of is the horrible things that Magneto could do to people
mm-hmm.
with melted metal,
Metal, my
like
God, like
liquid
in their
metal. Could you
nose,
imagine,
in their
like
body,
burning
like
them?
he could have.
Yes, but
Yeah.
of course we got f bombs in this. We got our our
Mm-hmm.
our celebratory f bomb in this film,
Yep.
and we got it also in Dark Phoenix. So it's definitely one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, how far is too far, and I guess it's kind of leaving to the imagination what they could have done with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool, because I think one of the things that always kind of surprised me, especially when we got to First Class, was Magneto was so limited. I mean, we're talking about, Storm is a Omega level, mutant.
Mhm.
Magneto is an omega level mutant. We have never seen him be able to do something that would affect even the Earth's gravitational pull, but he's
Mhm.
got that power now.
Right, and
And
didn't even
so
realize it. Yeah, didn't
yeah,
even
and
realize it.
even though I don't like, well, I kind of feel like the whole kind of the thing with Apocalypse was he enhances them, he makes them stronger for his purposes.
Mhm.
He offers them freedom, but really it's servitude.
Right.
Um, but it was interesting. Like he did, like, when they finally figure out what his end game is with what he's doing and what he wants to use Charles Xavier for, I think that's kind of what settled it, because I think they didn't all realize. Again, of course, you had, Katniss Everdeen, in blue, convincing Magneto to join the,
Cat. Let's call her
let's,
Cat Steak. Call her Cat
yeah, it's like,
Steak.
doing the
You
whole.
know.
So it's like okay, so you have, her, changing her. I never understood why P-
Pietro or
Quicksilver,
Peter.
Pietro,
Peter.
I guess he's Peter in this one.
Yeah, he's Peter. Yeah.
Why he doesn't just tell
Tell
Magneto
him.
he's his son?
But
Like,
also, but honestly, if I don't know, to tell somebody that, like, to tell somebody that I'm your kid, like that's a heavy thing to drop. And he's probably been afraid to meet this man since he figured out who he was. Like, so, like, as a watcher, I'm annoyed that he didn't tell him. Like, as a watcher, but I think it's
yeah,
funny that Mystique told Storm that Magneto is Peter's father, because towards the end when they're like rebuilding the mansion, Storm walks up to Peter and she's like, Mystique told me that your father is Magneto. Like, why didn't you tell him? Like, you're giving because fans were angry that he didn't tell him. Like, because we never get this in
yeah,
the movies. Because I feel like instead of having Mystique go up there, or Catsteak, instead of having Catsteak go up there and be
I like
like,
that cat Steve.
I'm fighting for my family. Like, are you fighting for yours or whatever? All that kind of stuff. If Peter would have told him, like, I'm your son, he lost a daughter to find out that Apocalypse was almost killed his son. I think that would have. I think that emotionally would have did something, and you could have gotten the same exact scene, and Cat Steak didn't have to do anything. Just saying.
Okay, okay, but let's also talk about this, because this is always what cracks me up, because I watched this film, I remember, for the first time, and when Magneto intervenes against Apocalypse,
He does the X.
I saw that first beam, and I'm like, they're gonna do an X. They're absolutely gonna do an X. There's no way they're not gonna do an X. And I was like, yep, there it is. Like let's go
It's
ahead and do this hobby.
it's such low hanging fruit, man. It's like, it's kind of like in Logan when they had the cross up and then she grabs it. I was like you. I was like, she's gonna make an X. She's gonna make an X. This is okay, guys. We
Yeah.
get it. We get it. We're watching the X-Men film.
It's the whole it's the branding. It's, we gotta remind people who we are. And of course, Mystique, she comes in, and they're on the plane. I thought this was interesting. You had the Blackbird. The Blackbird looked beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the hangars under the basketball court, and then we blow it up, and then we get this cheesy non X-Men like plane that they're flying in. And of course, then they're reminiscing about being the X-Men and talking about, her talking about her past, and she immediately
Yeah.
starts doing the thing that, oh, I don't want to, I'm not a hero. I'm just, I'm doing what's right or whatever. It's like, oh, you're a hero, you're a hero to me. And it's like, oh, well, I guess
I
I
hate
can
that
help
she
District 12.
fangirling over Mystique of all people. Like, that is such a irritating twist. And the only thing that gets me through most of the time is realizing that this is an alternate timeline in which Mystique is the hero. Right? This is an alternate timeline where, like, she could sway. It's mutant morphin time. That's hilarious. This is a timeline in which Mystique could have swayed either way, because they kept giving us like glimpses of her being like the Mystique we know, and then this new Mystique that like Charles raised, which Charles's arrogance throughout this whole thing gets on my nerves. He's like, "That's not the girl I raised. Y'all grew up together. You didn't raise nobody." And if we being technical, she might be biologically older than you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you sitting here like you raised this girl. She probably took the guise of a child because you're a child. Like,
you
come
manipulated
on.
a homeless mutant that was trying to steal food. And you're like,
Exactly.
hey, you could be a fun plaything. Because I'm going to be honest with you. When we get to Dark Phoenix, Xavier is everything that everyone thinks about Charles Xavier being messed up is magnified in this. Now, how they spin it, and we'll get to there in a minute because we're already halfway through. But how he spins it and how they spin it to make it look like, oh, Xavier, you're a d-bag, but you did it with love, and so like I'll be honest with you, like I get it. I feel like he was more relatable in Apocalypse, just for the fact that he was the victim of Apocalypse and he was having to fight to save his life, because he knew that his, as bad as he is with his powers, he knew that Apocalypse would be infinitely worse.
Right.
And everyone understood it. Like if he takes Xavier's powers,
it's done so. But that just shows you, like, I was watching that film, I was like, that just shows you how powerful Charles actually is, that they don't really speak about. Because when Apocalypse takes over his mind and Charles says, "I've never felt power like this before," that's not Charles talking, that's Apocalypse talking through him. So that's Apocalypse saying, "I've never felt power like this before," talking about Charles Xavier. So, and I'm sitting here like, this man he could get rid of all nuclear weapons, and he chose not to. And here's the thing, I understand his standpoint, right? You gotta let things move, right? You gotta let evolution and things do what it do. You can't, if we act like gods, then like we just can't do that no matter like our powers. I do understand that. But this is the same man that mind raped Moira, allowed her to have a family, get married, have a child, and then only to burden her with those memories, and then to turn around and do the exact same thing to a young girl. Which, here's the thing, I don't mind him doing that for her because the power was too overwhelming for her at that age, right? It was too overwhelming for her, even though like y'all was acting like she had the Phoenix Force right then and there. But I digress. That was too much for her right then and there. So like you pulled it back, you gave her, but you should have been chipping away at that slowly but surely, instead of trying to keep her controlled. Because that's what led to his downfall. Like he thinks he has control. But if you knew how powerful this girl was, you should have known your mental block was not going to last that long.
That's the thing with Jean Grey. Jean Grey has similar abilities with extra telekinesis. So not only can she read your mind, she can also
move you across the room.
Like,
right.
Yeah. So he had to know that what he was doing could be undone at some point, especially with her abilities. And there is PSA to the world, if you don't already know this, it is never a good idea to suppress traumatic events.
Nope.
It's better to deal with them and deal with them early than for them to come out when you are a stronger entity.
Yep.
Again, we're getting,
and you're already
Dark Phoenix, but
you're already at an emotional heightenedness that like it's hard to come down from due to the powers that have been amplified within your being. So not only is her powers amplified, her emotions are amplified. So her sadness could literally like tear the world apart. Her anger could burn the world down. You know what I mean? Like you don't like, he just, I don't understand how he thinks that this is a good way to go. Like just as many mistakes as Magneto makes, Charles makes the same one, but one is under the guise of like, I'm really trying to be a good guy, and the other one is like, I just want mutants to be on top. Like I just want, and that's why they're the same person. They just go about it differently, apples and oranges in a sense.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up with Apocalypse. Final thoughts before we move on to Dark Phoenix.
Final thoughts. This second go around, it wasn't as bad as my first go around with it. I think Oscar Isaac is a phenomenal actor, and I think if they would have given him more, maybe given him like comics to read, he could have really like made Apocalypse the star of this, you know,
Mhm.
as a part, because I felt like he's like a supporting bad guy, um in a sense, and they really wanted us to focus on like Magneto being coming in and being the bad guy, like it's, and that's not what it is. I felt like they could have given this man more, but for what he was given,
Mhm.
he done masterfully. I felt the gravitas of his character more watching it the second time, and I enjoyed Quicksilver. I enjoyed this a little bit more. I'll leave it at that. I enjoyed it a little bit more.
Yeah. I think what I realized with this was, though I would say the story wasn't perfect, there were some really fantastic moments and scenes that were definitely fan service that paid off in the film. The film was better than I expected. I will never forgive them for giving us the best X-Men costumes until Deadpool at the
Until the
end of this
end.
film,
Yep.
and then never giving them back. I am sorry. I was watching it on my screen down here, and when I got a better look, because it's been a minute since I've watched this movie. When I saw Scott Summers as Cyclops wearing the suit, not it's not 100% comic accurate, but you got the belt across the
Mm-hmm.
chest with the X logo on there, the visor, and the way the visor lit up when he touched the side of his head.
Yeah.
We never got that again, and it was so disappointing, because between him and Mystique's costume, and let's even say Quicksilver's was cool and Nightcrawler's was even cooler.
Storm was pretty accurate too. Like even though it was still
Yeah,
reminiscent of like the first X-Men when she first shows up, because it has like
yeah.
the
It's much more of the darker,
it's
like
more the
the build.
darker,
Yeah,
right, and it's
yeah.
like attached, so she has like the wings in a sense. So like if she
Mhm.
did fly like in the comics, it would have been better if it was white.
It
But
was
I
more of a
digress.
marriage between the first X-Men film and like the animated series, which I
Yeah.
wasn't super angry about. But like Mystique, like missing the skull, it looked really
No,
good.
it did.
And then yeah, and I, like we got that, and I was so excited to think, you know, man, we're gonna get really good costumes this next bout. And then, spoiler alert to Dark Phoenix, we got like the X-Men Evolution costumes, like or
Yeah.
like the Children of the Atom thing, like with the big X on the chest, like ugh, come on. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like one step forward and seven steps back. So
Yeah, it's just like I don't understand why they just wouldn't take those outfits from that and translate them to Dark Phoenix and maybe updated them a little bit, whether that was color. Because I always feel like in movies, like the wardrobe matters just as much as like the set pieces and the dialogue and the actors you're going to
mhm,
pick, because sometimes the clothes can tell a story in a sense too. So if we saw
yep,
all of them look like this in Apocalypse, by the time we got to um Dark Phoenix, maybe not Storm, but maybe Mystique's outfit has the skull now. Because maybe she's just a little bit different now. I
mhm.
agree. I would agree. She looked great. She wasn't talking. So that was great for me. She looked nice. But like maybe she would have had the skull. Maybe when we did see Storm, it would be a little lighter, or maybe it would be white, because maybe she's stepping into that goddess part of her. Like it would have just told a story without having to like physically tell us and show us the story. You know what I mean? So I kind of think they screwed the
Yeah,
pooch on the outfits come Dark Phoenix.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I'll be honest with you, like even like looking like I realized like the yellow in the costumes, like for
mm-hmm.
Cyclops, like for the belt, being translated to more of a metallic where it gave off the sheen
Yeah.
was a much smarter way of doing it. And I mean, coming into it, I hope we do get something very similar. I wouldn't even be mad if we got something almost identical to that end scene for Cyclops, because
Yeah.
I think it
I would
worked. I
love
think
for
it
them
worked
to
really
tell
well.
us how
Mhm,
they got these outfits created, if I'm being really honest. Because like if you go to like the
mhm,
Flash TV series, we all
mhm,
knew eventually that Cisco was the one that was creating these outfits for everybody. Like that Star Labs, because it's a laboratory, they had the
mhm.
technology to create these things, create the mask and poly, whatever clothes and all that kind of stuff to
Mhm.
help. So like that makes sense. I would love it if X-Men or like these movies would just show us like where did they create these costumes? Where did y'all get all this
Well,
leather?
I always thought it was. The leather kind of that's kind of like the kink of it all. But like I always thought it was Hank. Like I always figured because it always delves into the technology, like the ruby lenses
Quartz,
for
yeah.
the the ruby quartz and that kind of stuff. Like,
But I feel like
yes, like,
glasses is one thing because I feel like that's more scientific. But clothes, you telling me he in there sewing? Like somebody
I don't
has to
know if so
manufacture
much.
this, or like 3D printing. Like what are you? I just wish there was like, if you're gonna make it real, if you're gonna make it like a grounded type of thing. And I'm not saying it has to take up the whole of the
Yeah.
movie.
Well, think of it this way: you got Xavier who can mess with people's minds, and we know he has no problem doing it. He could
Facts.
easily go to like the best person to make tactical equipment, like, hey, you're gonna make some, blue and
And
yellow
I'm cool
outfits.
with that. And I'm
And
cool with
then
that.
mine's like,
Give me a scene with that, or give me a like, no, we talked to so and so. They're everything will be dropped off because like we even see how Deadpool made his outfit. You know what I mean? Like how he
yeah.
eventually like made his outfit. Like
Let me guess. Batman Begins, you love the fact that Alfred and Bruce were kind of going back and forth, like trying to figure out where pieces can come from to put them together.
yes,
Yes.
because to me that makes sense. To me, like
Yeah.
you just don't know the outfit you're gonna wear. You just don't know that you're gonna have like Bruce got his ass whooped. Excuse my French. So much that he started to be like, okay, I need Patton, I need this, I need that. He slowly built the suit based off of his needs, right? To me, that's super smart. It informs how smart he is, how smart Alfred. It adds layers and it adds like nuances to these characters because like what was it? Even in I had like the perfect example and I can't remember it now, but even in something else, we saw that like where they get there exactly, it adds an extra level of realism because you can't tell me that they're just like this stuff is being created out of thin air. Okay, that's what I mean, because you brought up Batman, because he even had Lucius Fox created all his toys.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that makes sense.
He was pillaging R&D for Wangor.
For Wangor, like right. And so like where y'all getting this stuff from? Like and if Xavier is using mind control, let me see it. We already know he's part villain. Like he's an anti-hero. So man, at this point, he's an anti-hero. So if he is using somebody, but you would think over the years that he's been alive that he would have some connection somewhere or something. Or that his facility, maybe his facility does have like, they can create things or 3D print things or create fabrics or however it is, but just show it to me. Just show it to me. I just want to see it. It just, again, it adds the realism. And then how do you choose? Because think about it, in X3, was it X3? Yeah, in X3, when like Wolverine's in the suit for the first time, where'd he get that from? Y'all just had stuff like on a hanger, go grab it if you need
it. Because remember, like he took the suit on and he's like trying to like stretch it out, and then he like pushes his
and he's like click. And like I think like that was like an X2 or something like that, because I'm just like, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? Where did these outfits come from? Like, how did you know you would need this? And how did you know these different sizes? Like to me, that just adds like it just adds a layer. It just adds a layer.
Well, there's lots of underage students to exploit to do, extremely.
So not only is Xavier a anti-hero, but he's also he's under child labor. He's a Martha Stewart of this universe.
Which brings us right into the plot line of Dark Phoenix.
Come on.
Okay, so my first thing about Dark Phoenix, I'm going to say this, was, and this is going to be really sad. I sat there and I said, thank God we don't get another one of those awful intro credit scenes where it's like them going through genetics or them going through
like DNA or something or something. Yeah.
I'm like, we've finally gotten away from the excessively long. And again, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies were just as guilty for this, because it was like the title credits through lots of webs and so like I was like, okay, at least they started off strong, I thought, in my opinion, because it's like, okay, you've got this scene, it starts up and it's gonna just say Dark Phoenix, that's great, let's get on. So here's my mental gymnastics again for this.
Okay.
So we know that the McAvoy and the Stewart timeline are kind of wobblyly connected. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey type stuff. And so we know that in Last Stand, Jean had a power in her. I don't know if they remember. I don't remember if they called it the Phoenix.
They never
They
did.
just said that there was darkness inside of her.
Yeah. But
So
also we know in X2 at the end of Pheonix was rising from the water. But continue.
we saw the bird-like thing, and I think that's like a mental manifestation. We
Mm-hmm.
know that she's called Phoenix in this because they never called the Phoenix Force. She's called
Mm-mm.
the Phoenix because the kids in the school basically kind of said she rise
This
from the
is
dead
from the
like a
grad.
phoenix.
Yeah.
And of course, she had the whole fire thing going because she had that going.
Right.
I think the way they're trying to, again, this is again Fox. Just we have to fill in the gaps. It's like
It's
Mr. DNA with
stupid.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
you
funny.
know, and so you have this, you
Well, my
know,
friend. No, I'm
this
saying.
mental manifestation, whatever the force was that these aliens wanted,
Mm-hmm.
the Debark or whatever they were called,
Yeah.
um, they it I think it manifested based off of this mental image that she had of flames and a bird. Like I think that's where it was never. I don't think it was ever meant to be called the Phoenix Force because they were, you know, again they're not doing anything with the comics really at this point except for like, oh, let's just read the cover and see what we do. Um,
They were so close to
so
like the TV, like the animated version, with them being in space and this like entity, this like cosmic entity, kind of like
oh, and
chasing,
having
you
like
know,
this
this
external power that was trying to
right,
manipulate them.
yeah,
Like again, they did the whole alien thing, which it's whatever. I'm trying to remember what the family was that did it. Oh, I just remember they weren't they involved with the Hellfire Club or something, but they were they tried to manipulate Jean in the, I remember in the animated series, but then also in the comics, like there was always this evil group that were trying to manipulate her and, you
yeah,
know, against the X-Men. And so that was refreshing. But then I'm gonna be honest with you, for whatever reason, and this movie didn't come out until after Dark Phoenix. I kept watching it the second time, being like, oh my goodness, this is Doctor Sleep. And if you haven't watched Doctor Sleep, which is a sequel to The Shining,
mm-hmm.
like it's these people that like live throughout generations and they like absorb the shine out of people. And I'm like, this girl is like the ringleader, and they're these like, you
Yeah,
know, eternal beings that are trying to, you know, trying to take over this power. And I'm like, sheesh, like it's not original, but at the same time, it's, you know,
what
it's
is though
whatever.
if you think about it?
Um, we've got the X-Men being like a household name.
Yeah,
The Bat Phone is in the mansion.
yeah,
Um,
direct line to the press. Yeah,
and it's like, but I'm telling you, they went from like 0 to 90, like Jean Grey saved the people, and then all of a sudden Jean Grey is killing, you know, is attacking cops. Um, but yeah, I didn't like the suits. I did like, I think I liked Jean more in this because she wasn't this like silent, just menacing,
mm-hmm.
you know, like possessed individual. I feel like there was more with her. I feel like her privilege was showing a lot in this because it just, it's like you just killed Mystique.
Yep,
So who are you going to go to? The man who like absolutely adores her with blood on your chest still. Like, come
right.
on.
Yeah,
So,
like I mean, for me, Dark Phoenix has its moments. Like as an action film, it's very big, it's
mhm.
very loud, so it doesn't miss in that mark. But story wise, it misses like across the board for me. Like to me, you haven't built up Mystique's relationship with any of these children enough for me to care that Jean killed her and that it should affect Jean in any way. There's not a
Mhm.
film in which you see Sophie Turner, and I'm saying their government names. You see Sophie Turner and I just forgot her name, Jennifer Lawrence. You see Sophie Turner and Jennifer Lawrence act on screen together, like very engaged with each other, having conversations, having moments. All of Jennifer Garner, all of Jennifer, it's too many Jennifers. All Jennifer Lawrence's screen time is either with that was right. The Shiara Lilandra. Yes. That's essentially what they did with this, but they just like warped it in a way. Jennifer Lawrence, all her time was spent with Fassbender and McAvoy. And then every now and again, she'll have scenes with the kids or whatever like that. But she has not built up enough like bond and rapport with them for me to care.
But they had that plane scene in Apocalypse, like where they really got together. And no, I completely agree with you. Like I think that's the thing. Like they don't build the relate. Like, okay, prime example. Okay, one of the things I loved about X-Men '97 is the sisterhood between Jean and Storm.
That's cool.
Like,
can we see that?
Like the two of the have you seen X-Men '97 yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, let me just say the non bad, like I'm just gonna say it this way: the relationship between all of the X-Men between each other is so much more fleshed out in the animated series, in X-Men '97 than it was ever in the animated series, and hasn't ever been done in the movies. And there is, you can tell there is this mutual. They consider each other sisters. Like the love between the two.
That's what you want to see.
Understandable.
I love that.
And you would think about that from them being like this team for all of these years and doing all this stuff. And the moment she makes a mistake, and everyone can tell she had a freak out, she kills Mystique, and Storm is like, she killed Mystique. It's unforgivable. Because of course Storm is a big, huge Mystique fangirl at this point.
At this point.
At this point, I should just say Raven, because they don't call her Mystique.
Mystique, right. So like she's a huge fan of hers. And there's no bond between like Storm and Jean in this. There's no bond between any of them. And if we're being honest, there's barely a bond between her and Cyclops, and like for me to even care that he cares about her, right? Like again, if we line all these up, if these are all supposed to be like either alternate timeline or like the Singer timeline, and then these are supposed to be like before, you know what I'm saying, on before that or whatever, right? Even if we look at it like that, how did James Marsden and Famke Janssen start here to get there? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't compute, right? Because you keep forcing these same characters down our throat and expecting that comic fans are going to get that. Yeah, they get together, so them just being together just makes sense. Him fighting so hard for her just makes sense. You didn't even like old girl at first, and she had a little bit of an attitude with you. And honestly, I would have loved if that would have continued for a little bit, and eventually they could have built their bond, because that would make more sense why in the X-Men movies, where even though she's attracted to Logan, she's like, it's always going to be him because of their history, because of everything that they've been through. But you don't see that in their like younger stages, right? You just throw them together because they're supposed to be. Maybe they didn't like each other during this time. You don't always like somebody who you end up being with, you know what I mean? It doesn't always work out that way. And Dark Phoenix for me was like a Jennifer Lawrence vehicle that didn't get driven well. It was missing some spark plugs. It was missing maybe a rotor or two or something like that.
Well,
it just
they saw how a popular villain, because let's face it, when Mystique was in the original, trilogy, any screen time she had was like I loved seeing her do what she was doing, but I never wanted to see her be a good guy. Like Mystique, they took all of the mystique out of Mystique.
Yep.
Because part of the thing about her was you didn't know what she was playing, what she was doing. When she would appear on screen, or when you realized that she was imitating somebody, like those moments were like, oh, that's cool. Like, wow, she's been Kelly this whole time, or this or that. We didn't get that opportunity to really enjoy her, other than I'm just going to do what I fits, and I'm just going to look like Jennifer Lawrence most of the time. Like,
no, for sure. Like there's no, and the reason why Rebecca Romijn was amazing as Mystique in those films is because not only was she tall and statuesque, because Mystique a baddie. Like if you go Mystique a baddie, I don't care what nobody say, she a baddie. And not only that, but the acting for her, she was cold, but you could still see that there was something in her eyes. I will say this, they did get it a little bit right with Jennifer Lawrence in the sense, like again, if I'm comparing them, they did get a little bit right in the sense that she has always wanted to like be loved for who she is. You know what I'm saying? Just be loved, because when you see her confront Wolverine and then she morphs into herself, she's like, so what you want me to be? Like she does want to be with somebody. She want to be with somebody. But I feel like
Mhm.
Mystique is the way that she was played by Rebecca Romijn is amazing, because even the when she goes Kurt's like, I heard you can, mimic somebody, even down to even the voice, even's the voice. And she's like, even's the voice. Even the way that Rebecca Romijn, I know that's not her voice. That's obviously his voice. But the way that she moves, the way that she embodies that character, man, it's gonna take somebody else to come
Could you
along.
imagine if she was on TikTok doing lip syncs? Like, come
Oh
on.
man, she'll crush it. What do you mean? She'll crush that.
But even like the few lines that she did get, like
Yeah.
either she was like laughing and like whispering with Magneto, or my favorite line like from the X-Men movie was when she's playing one of Kelly's correspondence,
Mm-hmm.
and she changes and she like puts her foot to his throat and she's like,
Yeah.
it's people like you that made me afraid to
Me,
go to
me
school, or
too. Like that's it's
yeah, and
two-legged
it's like,
child. Yeah.
yeah, and it was like it's like those moments where it was she chose to speak at certain times, and it was just kind of how it was. And even the idea that she knew her agenda was to get Eric at some point. And so in Last Stand, when she found the security guard and she got him
Mm-hmm.
pumped full of iron, like that's the kind of stuff that like was great. And I feel like it's again playing with the toys in the toy box, but not giving them the respect that they're due. Unfortunately, we aren't able to, get all of that, that
Yeah.
we really
Because
deserved.
even in Last Thing, I love when she goes, and this is just me, and I know I'm a black woman, I'm about to say this, but everybody calm down. But one of my favorite lines of hers is when the person is like Raven Darkholme, and she was like, I don't answer by my slave name. I love that scene. I love that scene because it shows that like I'm not that person. It shows a
Yeah.
disconnect from the human that she technically still is,
Mhm.
because you can't be a mutant without starting as a human. Like you just can't. That's just this evolution. That's just how it works, right? So like I love when she says it's like one of my favorite lines of hers. And Rebecca Romijn just does it so well. She's embodied that character in a way that Jennifer Lawrence has not. And this is no offense to Jennifer Lawrence or anything like that, because I think after a while she got tired of playing that character and she wanted an out. And they gave her one in Dark Phoenix by killing her. But let's get back to Dark Phoenix. Jessica Chastain. Okay. No offense to Jessica Chastain, but I felt like they did her dirty in this film. She showed up. She did her job amazingly well. Some of her scenes are some of my favorites, but to give her a face that's just, we can help you. We can do, like, I was just like, what are we doing with Jessica Chastain? Jessica Chastain has levels. She could have went from manipulative to menacing, to she could have done, like, she has the range to do these things, and they kind of made her like a one trick pony that was OP. And you're telling me that this alien couldn't handle the Phoenix Force, but Jean can handle the Phoenix Force.
Oh, I mean, let's face it. She was a third act baddie who was teased through the whole film because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it wasn't until they were in New York that she even really mattered because they
Right.
found her. Um, and of course they had to have a big battle. And let's face it, Magneto was on the right side of history at that point. Um,
I still feel like he was on the wrong side in a sense. And I'm only saying that because I love playing devil's
yeah.
advocate for one. Um, I love it. But also, I feel like he was on the wrong side of it because he knows what it feels like to be manipulated. He knows what it feels like to have somebody use his abilities in the wrong way. And on top of that, she's not herself. And on top of that, she's learning about that she is responsible for her parents dying, that her mother dying. She's responsible. Her father doesn't want her, and she's been lied to by the very man that she put in her father's place. You know this stuff, dude, and you're using your own hurt for Raven to kill this girl, which I will say is more than what Scott did in Apocalypse when his brother died. But I will say that I don't know. I felt like this would have been a great time to show, like, and I get it. He's still young, but he kind of not at this age. Like, he's really not. I would have loved it if they would have shown Magneto be a little bit more like tactical, a little bit more like strategic. Him just basing everything off of emotion. Because once you get to Ian McClellan, he's like, all in due time. We got a story that has to happen somewhere. It just don't happen when you in you 70, 80. You know what I mean? It had to have happened somewhere. And I felt like he's went through enough to be like, okay, no. I can't rush through like just guns a blazing. I gotta figure out a way. Like I don't know. It just I felt like it was just a waste of being like, let's show Magneto's amazing powers again. Because if we want to call a spade, Charles's powers are just as amazing, and they don't do nothing with his abilities. Bro can do everything, and they don't do anything.
Let's go back. Let's go backwards a little bit. Let's Days of Future Past. Okay, McAvoy and Stewart have a scene where Stewart lets McAvoy's Xavier see what's happening in the future, and that had to include some of the stuff that happens with Jean Grey.
Yes.
And he does the same mistakes. He does absolutely the same mistakes. And you would have thought when you got to the end of Days of Future Past with Jean being with them that you thought, oh, he learned his lesson. And that didn't happen. And so it's like, if Days of Future Past was all about changing the future to make it better, why would he have done that? Why would he have allowed that to continue to happen? Like, those are the things that keep me up at night when it comes to the X-Men stories, and why I'm kind of glad one day we're going to maybe see X-Men on the big screen in the MCU, unless they keep like just kind of burying the lead and
they keep doing the Blade and keep switching out directors and writers and not knowing what to do.
Or they do the whole multiverse of madness thing where Wanda was supposed to have her whole she was supposed to have a whole big storyline. She was supposed to be the Avengers level threat. And I think it was Waldron or whoever it was that wrote insisted on having her be the baddie, even though we had so much character development in WandaVision that it basically Multiverse of Madness threw that all out in the air.
I kind of blame Sam Raimi for it too, though, because he didn't even watch the shows. Like, he didn't watch any of the show. He watched like bits and pieces, but he didn't. He just I feel like he pulled a singer and was just like, we just gonna do what I feel like we should do in the movie. Let's just do it. And I get it. He's directing, but also I feel like, from a writer standpoint, I feel like they not only let down Wanda, but I do feel like they let down Doctor Strange too in my book. But that's just me.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Like, I think that's also Marvel Studios. You're listening. I know you're listening, Marvel Studios. Hear this out. You've got to be more selective, because you got to know something. If you get Sam Raimi, that's exactly what you get. Unless he writes the story, he's going to direct it in his style with whatever you give him.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that he's going to go back and do reference and source material. If you wanted that, you should have gone somewhere else.
But honestly, I feel like they should bring David S. Goyer to do Blade. They should bring David S. Goyer to come back to do the Blade films. Or I feel like Guillermo del Toro could probably do a dope Blade film. I feel like he could do a dope Blade film with Mahershala Ali, if I'm being honest.
Ooh.
I feel like they should
whatever they do, they got to do something so Wesley Snipes stops trolling everybody. I just got to say it. Have you been seeing what he's like?
Who?
Yeah, Wesley Snipes keeps trolling the Blade production because of all every time it gets delayed, he goes, "Oh, it didn't take us all to see it fixed."
That's hilarious. Honestly, bring in Wesley Snipes to write it. I feel like at this point, just give me something. But I want to ask you a question. I want to pose a question to you because you have the brain. Do you think that in X-Men Apocalypse, when they're trying to he's trying to transfer his consciousness into Xavier, and he's like, he's trying to get him to get out, like he's like, get out, but then at the end they were like, Kurt saved him or whatever, and they were still connected. Do you think that Xavier could always transfer his consciousness, or did he take a piece of Apocalypse with him? because we know that in X3 he
Hmm.
transfers his consciousness to his comatose twin brother. Do you think mentally that was always something he could do, or did he take a piece of Apocalypse?
I think that it could be either way. I always thought that maybe he got the idea from Apocalypse
Mm,
and it was something that he had within him. Apocalypse just didn't have the ability to control other people's minds, but he
mm-hmm.
could always transfer his consciousness. I think that Xavier probably had both abilities. I think that's why he said I've never experienced such power before. Apocalypse, because it's like, okay, I've been able to do mind transfers, but this is next level. Like this
Right.
is the next step. And so that's a really good question. Like
Because I'm very curious, because like I know that he has the power to
now
like,
did they write it that way? No.
no, of course not. But I feel like it just linked up too hard for me to like not think about it for a little bit, because we
Sure.
know that Xavier is very powerful. We know that he can control people, but that doesn't, for me, that doesn't automatically mean that like I could just transfer my consciousness into another person, which I guess technically he does when he speaks through people, but to me that still feels like telepathy and not like a transference of one's mind within somebody else's mind. But because they were
Right.
still connected with each other, I feel like, and that connection didn't hadn't ended yet, I felt like because because Apocalypse transfers his entire like everything of him to another person and he only got so far with Xavier, I felt like a little
Uh-huh.
drop of that power that he took from somebody else got left within Xavier. I like to think of it like that, at least, you know,
It's
just a
I
little
mean it's
fun.
possible. I also do say like the only thing is like Apocalypse could not transfer his consciousness to Xavier outside of the pyramid. Like he had to
Right.
use the technology to do it.
But Xavier's mind ain't like nobody else's, because their connection even still stood even outside of that pyramid. They were still connected even outside of that pyramid.
Well, yeah, I think the link was there. I don't know if they built because you imagine like Charles is getting mad at somebody and all of a sudden they disintegrate into the floor. Like it'd be
I
nice
mean,
if some of those powers could
but that would be dope. But I feel like that might
yeah.
have been like the only ability that got transferred to him a little bit. Like that was like the
Yeah.
first thing, because Xavier is mental, is all mind. So I would, you know, maybe the first ability that did transfer was like, because this, cause that's essentially what he's doing. He's transferring his consciousness. So I feel like Xavier took a little bit of that. I just like to think of it like that. But that was just a question I have for you, though. That's all.
I also think, and here's the other thing. I think the link between the two of them was not through that machine or through the consciousness transfer. I think it was with Cerebro that it started.
Mm,
Because remember he said he's like thank you for like you like opening the door. Like I think they just never closed the door with
the
Cerebro.
door,
Like he kept him
right?
connected.
Kept it open. Yeah,
So but yeah, I mean it's
yeah,
that's a great like theory. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's one of
we'll
my.
never we'll never
We'll
know.
never know. We'll never know. But it's one of my theories, though. It's one of my theories.
That's where I love like headcanon. Like headcanon things are
Yeah.
like really fun. Um it's like you get certain payoffs. MCU, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, you've got them waiting for the collector, Drax's little like monster. I forget what it's called right now. Because it's been like a year since I even talked about it. But that scaly, like hairless creature that had a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
hair on the belly, is winning, and like Drax wins the whatever
Oh
the
yeah,
gamble is
yeah,
with the,
yeah.
and then
Mm-hmm.
you find out that that's the exact same creature that is all red and furry that they're carrying around. It's a different
Different.
creature, but it's the same
Mm-hmm.
species. And you realize, oh, that's what they're supposed to look like, and like that's a cool payoff. But unfortunately, I think they left a lot of things open that they would never like. And that's the thing about comic movies; they
Yeah.
leave hints for things, but they never give us the hint.
Yeah,
And
they
then
never give us
you
a
think of
payoff.
like
Yeah.
and you think of like the DCEU. One of the things I remember how excited I was wearing my Man of Steel shirt the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Man of Steel. I thought it was a great film.
I'm one of the ones
And
that did too. But go ahead. I loved it.
when he was fighting Zod and they
Mm-hmm.
go out of the orbit and they like collide with the Wayne Industries like satellite,
Mm-hmm.
oh like that's cool. We might get a connective universe. And then of course the next movie was so like quickly mashed together. You're like, oh, they really could have teased that a little bit longer. Like, I
No,
mean,
like
we
that
got
was
we
the
got we got Wakanda
I'll
mentioned
I'll
in
always
Age of
say
Ultron.
I'll always say the downfall of the DCEU is that they try to rush the Trinity instead
Yep.
of letting the Trinity, like, if they were smart, and this is just me, and I wish like could just work with these people. I really wish I could work with these people, because as much as I love Marvel, I think I love DC just like it goes like this sometimes. You know what I mean? It just depends
Oh,
on
and
what it is.
Superman's close to my heart. Like
You
Super,
know what I mean?
I
And
absolutely love Superman and Batman.
I love Superman. I love Superman. I love Batman. I love Wonder Woman. Like, come on, I love them all. Like, there's so many DC characters that I do love. But if they were smart during that time, you would have started. If you wanted to start with Man of Steel, that's great, because you gave us a different Man of Steel. You didn't give us one that was in his underwear. You didn't give us one that was overly bumbly, bumbling fool. You gave us one that was a little bit more grounded than the rest of them. And that's no disrespect towards Christopher Reeves, because he's OG he's Superman Clark Kent. Like, I'm not, for me, like, no offense to George Reeves either, but you ain't my era, my boy. Christopher Reeves is.
Yeah.
So, like, if you wanted to start with Man of Steel, you should have, but it should have been you should have let it drawn out to the point where, like, you could take characters like Blue Beetle and throw him into that atmosphere and throw him into that world, right? You could take characters like Wonder Woman and then throw her in, then throw Flash in, maybe throw in Vixen, you know what I'm saying? Take us to Africa. Like, you could have created this very big world, right? And you could have interspliced the Trinity throughout these movies, and then put lesser known ones in there to create a full universe. But they wanted to compete with the MCU, so exactly they did it. They did too much too fast, because they wanted to capitalize off of what the MCU was doing, but not realizing that the MCU started off smart by giving us somebody like Iron Man to start with, and then build a connected universe that just started to connect and blend and weave and do all these type of things. DC animation, though, solid hands down. Marvel can't touch their animation. I don't care what nobody says.
Absolutely.
And my name is Black Girl Marvel. Marvel can't touch the animations. DC crushing it.
I'm Mr. Marvelite. I will watch a DC animated movie anytime, over and over again. Absolutely,
you understand
love
me?
them.
Ask me how many times I've watched
the Marvel ones.
Ask me how many times I've watched Justice League Dark. Ask me.
How many?
1 billion times. You understand me? I can watch that film. I can watch it and then go back and watch it again in the same instance. Like, it's such a great film. It's so great. It's one of my favorites. I love that whole strip.
Animated film I can't stop watching? Super Sons. I don't know what it is.
Super Sons is so good.
Listen, I bought the Super Sons omnibus just because I love that movie so much.
Super Sons is so good. Damien is a little shit in this movie, and not to say that in the other ones, in the other ones where he's like, where he's like a little bit more like he's drawn a little bit older, a little bit different, that he's still not like a little shit in those. But in Super Sons, the way that they have him look, he looks like a smug little bastard, and I love every bit of it. Super Sons is so good because Jonathan is the sweetest thing since sliced bread getting thrown into this world.
Apple pie. You think of his dad, like Jonathan is like the pure joy of apple pie. That's all I like when I think of it. Like he's like super happy that you've got Damien, and it's like even the whole like don't touch my cow thing, like with the milk and, like that. It was just a great dichotomy between the two of them.
Yeah,
and I think that was what kind of compelled me so much. But yeah, they do it. I'm gonna tell you, I was so excited when I really got back into Marvel, as the movies were coming out, and so I went to the animated series. And I will tell you, that was a labor of love. That was a labor
because I couldn't do it. I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
And the only thing I could never get through was like the anime style Iron Man animated series. That was pure trash, trash. But like I think the only animated Marvel movie that I really actually did enjoy was the Doctor Strange one.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was specifically, but it was kind of like he kind of gets mixed up in everything, but I don't remember if he had the accident. Like I don't remember that part of it because I've only ever watched the movie once. It wasn't really that great. Um, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
they did
Marvel
too much too
animated
fast. Like,
is hurtful. Marvel animated is hurtful.
yeah.
I, as a kid, I was always a kid who like the animation draws me in before the story does. Like
Now,
if
correction.
I can sit with the
Uh,
animation, I'm game.
mhm.
But I couldn't with the
Now,
Marvel movies.
Avengers Assembles, that series was good.
Okay.
Spectacular Spider-Man was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but then of course there was like issues with Sony, and so they stopped doing that series.
Hmm.
And so it's like Marvel just kind of doesn't try much anymore. I mean, let's face it, how long ago were we promised the freshman year Spider-Man series? And I'll tell you right now, I slightly enjoyed and I really wanted to love Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur,
Hmm.
but I just couldn't keep with it. And I think it was more
It's on my
because
list to watch, but I get you. I feel like
it's
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 very
it's
young.
it's it's good, but it's very young.
Hmm.
It's like, so I couldn't get, like, I wanted to, I really wanted to. And then of course, like, like even stuff like Patton Oswalt doing like the
Modoc.
Modoc show,
Hmm.
like it was okay, but it reminded me too much of Robot Chicken, and
Yeah, but
you
see,
know,
I feel like just how we were like DC, the DCEU tried to do too much too fast. I feel like with Marvel on that front, now they're doing too much too fast. Instead of being like, a couple of years or a few years in between stuff, you keep trying to give us stuff back to back and it doesn't feel finished, right? Nothing feels quite finished. Everything kind of feels like it was like put together with spit and grit, and that doesn't work with everything, especially when you're a massive company that can take the time. Because let's call it spade a spade. Superhero movies in general, whether it's Marvel, whether it's new people creating a new stuff and stuff coming out, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ronin and all that kind of stuff that's coming out, this stuff isn't going anywhere. It's people. There's always going to be nerds. We're always going to be here. We're like mutants ourselves. We're not going anywhere. We're here. We're loud. We love this stuff, but
and
we're
we're
going
taking
to.
over.
We're right. We're taking over, and we're converting people too. Because my mom loves the MCU. Like I've got her converted, and she loves the MCU. But it's like we're not going anywhere. So sit back and create something that'll get us excited again. Take your time. Y'all ain't losing no money.
Yeah.
Anything you put out, we're going to consume. So, but
Yeah.
make it worth our time, because we're going to get online and we're going to rip you to shreds, Madam Web. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but you know what? As bad as it was, I think the badness of that movie actually worked in its favor, to make it more, desirable for some people to watch, because it's kind of like going to NASCAR. You don't want it to happen, but then you kind of like you get excited if you see a wreck, and
Right. But you're like, are they okay?
it
All
yeah,
right, they okay. All right, they
wow,
okay.
look at all those flames. That's kind of
My
interesting,
God.
but yeah. Speaking of crashing and flaming, let's finish off Dark Phoenix before we. um
Yeah. I
yeah,
will
I
say this.
mean,
I will say this. I appreciate that Dark Phoenix at least tried to pull something from like the cartoon version with them being in
yeah.
space. And I know that's still slightly comic book accurate, but I still feel like they were pulling more from the animated version than they were the comic book. So like I appreciate that. I just feel like somewhere in the writing, somebody sneezed and they wrote the wrong stuff and they just didn't tell nobody that they wrote the wrong stuff, and everybody just was like, oh, this what y'all want? Okay, I mean, it's here in writing. I felt like if they would have put a little bit more attention towards if they could put more attention towards character building, right? Maybe I would have enjoyed this world a little bit more. I like connections. That's why McAvoy and Fassbender are so great in these films, because you've established their connection, and now we
Mhm.
get to watch them ride this roller coaster. But when it comes to all these secondary characters that you're putting into these stories, that yes, we have context of them, but you're not building these connections. Because if you think about it, because
Mhm.
this is a alternate world, or however you want to look at it, you can build new connections. You can give us
Yeah.
new things to look forward to. Maybe Storm and Magneto, for some reason, become very close because she was like a fan of Mystique's. And she
Mhm.
knew how Mystique felt about, because if Mystique could tell her that Magneto is Peter's father, I would expect that y'all had conversations after this. because that ain't your business to tell Storm of all people you just met the girl. So if she knows this, it would make sense that maybe she wanted to get to know her mentor. They became really cool. She learned about Eric from her. She knows that Eric isn't 100% a bad guy. So it would have been cool because I think what was it, Genova? Essentially, what he created on that island was like Genova, and it's supposed to be like a Genosha. Yeah. My bad. It's supposed to be like I'm like Genova, like Princess Diaries. Supposed to be Genosha. You feel like? So it's supposed to be like Genosha. So like, I would have loved if Storm would have left Xavier and went to Magneto. That would have been interesting to see that dynamic, give us new connections. And if for me, that's the biggest downfall, not the fact that they didn't really follow the comics, because do they ever? I'm kind of used to them not doing that, but I would have loved if they would have relied more on their characters than the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So here's my final like take on kind of what bothered me with Dark Phoenix. And again, it's more watchable this last time than it was before. I appreciated it more. There is one movie that is not on this road to Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's just because I don't have the patience to watch it, and I really wanted to like it, which is the New Mutants. But there's a whole different reason. It's part of the same reason why I hate Morbius. But beside that, we did not earn the school being renamed the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters. I understand that's pulled from the comics, that it does end up being called the Jean Grey School. I think they do that at the end of The Last Stand.
Yeah.
But here's the problem with that. Jean Grey wasn't the beloved character that ended up being killed. If it would have been anything based on the story of how they were leading this, it would have been the Raven School. Like it would have been. That's kind of like, again, the toy box.
Or it would have been like Mystique School, because that like she just wanted to be recognized for who she actually was. Yeah, I feel you on that. I feel you on that, Tony. I feel you on that.
And it's kind of like those things, and then at the same time, like Fassbender's Magneto is ready to go kill Jean, not because she intentionally murdered Mystique.
Mm-hmm.
But because she couldn't control her ability and she died by accident. Like, that makes no sense.
No sense.
And then, of course, like Sophie Turner's Jean, like even being aggressive and going after the military, like, okay, I get it. She feels upset. She has all these things. And Singer, I can imagine Singer looking at this like, this is my opportunity to prove that Last Stand was crap, and I could take moments and stuff. Did we have to go back to the Gray House? Do we have to see another, mentoring figure get killed in that moment? Did we have to see the characters realize that the only way to take out Jean would be to kill her at some point?
Because Dark Phoenix is just X-Men Last Stand underneath a new moniker with younger people. It plays the same beats as X-Men,
with the exception of the alien influence, but it was actually no, it's the same.
No, it's the same.
The alien influence you just translated to Magneto at that point.
Exactly, it's the same. And Magneto in Last Stand manipulates her to come to his side, which for a minute she was on his side for a little bit in Dark Phoenix until she was like, I'm out E5000. Like he was like, you gotta leave. You gonna kill all these people. Like It's Last Stand just called X-Men Dark Phoenix. That's what it is.
The only thing was Cyclops doesn't die.
Yep.
Xavier survives, but he quits basically.
Yeah.
Even though he knows the future.
But
we have the promise of the Phoenix still surviving.
Exactly. But it's the same thing. They just added some different scenes. They just added, it's more effects this time. Her powers are used.
I just like the film more.
Thank you. I dislike the film more. That's all he did. He just took X-Men Last Stand, erased the title, put Dark Phoenix on it, and then flipped some characters.
This is how I'll do it.
Exactly. He just flipped some characters because that's what it is.
Except for at the end of Last Stand, humans and mutants are getting along more. And at the end of Dark Phoenix, they've lost all of their connections with the United States, and that's back in the crap hole.
And that's because there are two different timelines in which mutants are feared in one and mutants are more known in the other, right? Like they came out at a time where like it was okay, like people understood that they existed and they were around and all this other kind of stuff. In X-Men Last Stand, they were still hiding. People didn't know, people were afraid when their kids became one and all these other type of things. Like it's that's the only difference, is that
Mhm.
Mystique was like the beacon of like you can do a good thing and still look like this or still be this thing. Her dying is like when Professor X died in Last Stand, because he was the beacon in that universe. In this universe,
Mhm.
Charles ain't the beacon. Mystique is.
Yeah.
It's the same movie.
Oh, sheesh.
And it's 3 letters. X-Men Dark Phoenix, X-Men Last Stand. Same title.
Oh, I was to see if the letters even work that way. It doesn't. No,
No,
Phoenix
no,
has too many letters.
no, no, it has too many letters.
Oh,
But still,
sheesh.
it's 3 and 3. I'm just saying. It's 3 and 3.
Well, thank you for ruining that experience for me.
You're welcome. I try to do that the best I can for
Do you
people.
know? Do you know? I will say, as much as this is the case, and it's funny because like people are like, well, I don't, I could make it tonight. I knew you would, and I appreciate you being here. But I was okay if I had to do this by myself because just like when we went back to we were doing the Last Stand one,
Mm-hmm.
I understood that it was not everybody's cup of tea, and I love to joke about the Ivan Ooze, apocalypse, and
Right.
and the but it's I'm just glad we're now done with this so that next week we can actually enjoy ourselves
Oh
more
yeah, because I love those 2 films.
because
Mm,
oh yeah,
love them to
it's
pieces.
I absolutely and oh
I will say
oh
one of the best and worst scenes of Dark Phoenix for me is when Jean is like, "Come to me," and she makes Xavier walk up the stairs.
yes, okay, yes, like the hatefulness
That was
with
horrifying.
her.
And to me, that wasn't the Phoenix Force. To me, that was Jean. Because I
Yeah,
felt like
yeah, well because
Jean
she was mad.
wanted
It
him
wasn't until
to
she looked in his
hurt
brain, yeah.
the way that she hurt.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't until he made her look inside her mind, which that was the moment where I was just kind of like, okay, he's been the bad guy, but he did it out of love. Like,
Yeah.
like that moment where she's like, I know it's because you loved me. Like, oh, come on, just
But you don't hide the truth from people you love. And I think that's what superhero movies for me, the trope, the biggest trope of all tropes that I hate for superhero movies is that they always hide the truth from people, especially because X-Men Dark Phoenix is touted as a mental illness film, because they keep saying that Jean has a mental illness. It's even in the tagline of like, if you read a
oh yeah,
description of it, is she, they say she has
uh-huh.
a mental illness. So you haven't described that mental illness, but I like to think that this may be DID, maybe dissociative identity disorder or something like that. Maybe she,
Well,
because she
that's like
goes
the
back
whole
and
thing
forth.
when, yeah, because like Xavier even goes to like they're going through her mind, and Ray was like, "Is this how everybody's mind is?" Like, no, it's like he was burying trauma,
It's,
like
right.
her brain was fractured. Yeah,
And you would
yeah.
think, because he's been inside Magneto's brain, is it safe to bury somebody's trauma?
Now here's the thing. I'm trying to remember like it's been a minute since I've read some of the OG comics leading up to the Dark Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
or the Phoenix Saga. I think the burying her psyche was not a comics thing. I think that was a movie specific thing.
I
I
think
have
it was a movie specific thing too. I think I think what they I don't think she had a mental illness. I think they used that I think they used her trauma as a way, as I think they use her trauma and this entity as a way that that she had a mental illness, because it presented as that. It presented, but I felt like, and I don't think having DID is a mental illness. I just want to put that out there. I don't want anybody to think that I think that, but I think that's how the film was portraying her character, because she had moments where she has went back and forth between Jean Grey and this darker entity within her, which we never give it a name, but she flips back and forth, and you know when she's not Jean because her eyes, you know, turn that color. She gets like kind of veiny and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she still has the foresight to go to Magneto and ask for help because he's had darkness in him. And how did you get this out? How did you work this out? So she's fighting within this, and it's only because this power like brought up her trauma that if you think about
Mm-hmm.
it, if Xavier would have left her alone, she probably would have been a little bit traumatic. She
I have
probably
a
would have
problem.
had
I'm
a
gonna
little
jump
bit of
here.
issues. Okay. She probably
I
would have
think
had a little
this
bit of
is
issues. Oh, okay.
okay. So this is a scene from the. Actually, I think this is actually. No, I'm having a hard time. I'm gonna move up since I can't see. Here we go. Like Xavier, she was telepathy that really had been awakened by her traumatic. Okay, so she did have traumatic like issues. Yep, it says there that she had that her telepathy was unlocked by traumatic events, and that Xavier sealed it. So okay, so it's not a movie specific thing. So
Okay. But I
okay.
still feel like,
The more you know.
I mean, but I still feel like, I don't know. I just felt like nowhere, anytime we've seen Sophie Turner's Jean Grey, did she present as though she had any type of mental hardships in any way.
No, she kind of act privileged and superior to everybody else.
You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and you think about it, if you go to Dark Phoenix, you see why she was one of the first kids at that school, right? So you do feel a sense of ownership, and you're going to get a little bit of privilege because it's like, I know these halls like the back of my hand. I've been here since I was a kid.
Oh, and how about the line? You're not you don't need to be fixed because you're not broken. But let's go ahead and just seal everything away.
No, for sure. So am I broken or am I not broken, sir? Which one is it? See, and that's the thing. I would love for these films to dig a little bit deeper into the hypocrisy that is Professor X. Because here's the thing. I will say this. I do think he's well intentioned. But because we see him as like when he's older, he can guide people. It's because he didn't have guidance, right?
Yeah.
He's always been in a position where just because he can hear everybody's thoughts and sense everybody's feelings, that he knows what they are, when in actuality he doesn't. And we already see that when and it's too much for him, he represses even himself, which is why he took that drug to stop his abilities so he can start walking again, so he can get back to being who he thought he was. Because think about it, he was mind raping like women when he was younger. So he's always been this person that takes his power into his own hands to achieve what he wants. It's only when he started meeting more people like himself that and then like the world started changing, that he figured maybe I should probably start using my powers to help people.
And that's a good point, because you know Mystique didn't like that even in the first X-Men first class. Like she's like, you're manipulating, you're a user.
Yep.
You know, yeah.
Yep. And he even tells I think Magneto
so
even yells at him like he'd like, get out of my head, Charles. He's like, get out of my head, Charles. Like you try to because it's like nobody tells you how they're feeling. You think you have carte blanche to be in their head to know how they're feeling. And that's unfair to everybody around you, because he doesn't tell people how he's feeling. And that's unfair.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because I think the Patrick Stewart Xavier at the beginning was definitely like that. Like in the first X-Men, you think of him as like, he's just a teacher. He's just trying to help people. I'm going to help you, Logan. And then you find out in X2, you know, oh, he's like Magneto's like, have you told him yet? You know, and he's like, I thought it would be better to tell him on his own. And it puts him in this whole circumstance with, you know, going to Alkali Lake and everything else. And then in X3, you find out that he's been, you know, playing, you know, mind games, literally with Jean. So it's like, it's like at that point, I think,
and Jean, a grown woman at this part. So at this point, so you haven't given her memories or helped her like at all throughout her time here. So it's like, I feel like because of everything he's done when he was younger, he got to an older age where he was just like, y'all, I'm a talk to me if you need to, but y'all figure it out. Like, because he really got to a point where, like, because if you go back to McAvoy's X is I want my hands in everything. I need to know. I can figure it out. My mind's strong enough. I can do everything. Stewart's X is very much like the world moves in a certain way, and we will let it move the way that it moves, and I'll just sit back and help out. I'll freeze time every now and again to have a conversation with somebody, but that's about all I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna make sure they don't remember it. Like,
Yeah, and let's intimidate the president of the United States and
you
bring the
know,
guy who tried to assassinate him. Not saying we're here to
exactly.
help. We're not here, you know.
But that shows you how
Yeah,
devious, how slightly devious he can be given the opportunity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sheesh. Well, I'm looking forward to Deadpool next week because it's a lot less problematic, even though it can be questionable. Um,
I'm saying.
yeah. Any last thoughts before we go?
Overall, as a whole, I enjoy what we get from all these films. I might not 100% love everything, but there's always something in them that I like. And any type of conversation I can have with these films, to me, it's a win, whether I like them or not. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy being able to speak my mind about these films. And I just hope we see in the MCU X-Men, whenever that shows up, I hope we see more characters and less of like, I don't know, the holy quartet that is. I don't want to be, this shouldn't be, don't make it the CW is what I'm saying. I don't need love triangles. I don't need, we all know that Jean and them, like, to me, it's, there's no fire there anymore. I know that Wolverine is pining over this chick that he's just gonna meet. I know that she kind of likes him
It,
too.
yeah.
Like, give me different connections,
It's
give me
so
different
early comics
dynamics.
too.
Yeah,
Like
and it's like,
it's yeah.
I don't need that anymore. I'm hoping for more conversations like this with you, because this is a lot of fun to, like,
Yeah.
go back and forth and have these conversations. But I'm hoping going forward we just get some really good storytelling, some really good acting, and some really good effects. That's all, yeah.
Oh yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Well, with that said, we are done talking about these films finally. Um yeah, I mean, not the worst. I mean, let's face it,
No,
nothing
not the
beats
worst.
X-Men Last Stand as being the worst. Um
I mean,
and
nothing
honestly,
nothing beats Avatar: The Last Airbender as the worst film of all time. So if you can make a
you
if you
like Aragon.
honestly, I still feel like Airbender worse than Aragon, and I own Aragon.
Oh, I own Aragon too, but I look at it and I just curse its name every day. Um, but but yeah, with that said, we are done talking about X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. Tune back in next week, July the 10th, at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be having Kai with us, vibing with Kai
Very
on
cool.
TikTok and Instagram, which is fun. He's a big Marvel fan. We've geeked out every once in a while on lives when I've been on there. So it gives them an opportunity to talk, comic books and everything. So that should be fun. And we probably have more people with us. So it should be a good round robin. And again, that'll be Deadpool. So if you would like to go ahead and watch that before Wednesday next week,
One and
that
two.
way you can catch up with us. We'll do the first one. We're doing the first one. And then the next week is two.
Is it? Oh, I thought we were doing one and
Yep.
two. Oh, you
No,
changed
we're
it up
doing
on me.
one. Yeah, no, it's no. No,
No,
one was the
I'm gonna
10th
put
and
you on. I'm
then
gonna put you on blast. Oh, no, you're right. One was the 10th, and the other is the 17th. My bad. I apologize, Tony. That's on me.
thank you. I appreciate
That's
that.
on me. I apologize.
Um, no worries. But with that said, please be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when the next show is coming on. There's
Please.
lots of stuff going on with Nerd Initiative, and be sure to check us out on our website. With that said, Law, thank you so much again for joining me,
Of course. Thanks for having me, man. Always.
and be
I'm
sure
here
to follow her
anytime.
wherever there. Yep, and be sure to follow her
Always.
anywhere Black Girl Marvel. You will not regret it.
You won't.
But with that
I'm
said,
pretty
have a
awesome.
wonderful evening, and we'll
Bye,
catch
guys.
you
Have a
next
happy
week.
4th. Be safe.